Welcome, everyone. My name is Severin Garrett, and I and my husband James love the Tower Garden. And we're going to be sharing with you today a little bit about this growing technology. And it's really an overview for you to learn more about this amazing growing solution. I will tell you first and foremost, I have found that growing my own food at home with the Tower Garden has really impacted our health. And I'll share more of our story as we get going. But that's a side effect that I wasn't expecting. And I hope that it'll be the same for you and your family. So let's see here. I'm going to start out with our story. And this is our Tower Garden in Atlanta. 13 years ago, someone introduced us to this modern technology growing solution. We thought it kind of looked like Star Wars, and we had never been able to grow anything at home. We would say that we had a black thumb, so we had tried all kinds of things, from those upside down tomatoes to growing herbs in a little herb garden, and we just didn't have success. But when we got a Tower Garden, we got super excited and we were growing all kinds of things. So you can see on this one Tower Garden, I want to draw your attention to the fact that I'm growing multiple types of greens, multiple types of herbs. I could also grow tomatoes out of this tower. I could grow anything that's not a root vegetable or a tree. So I'll tell you more about that in a minute, but that's a common question. What can I grow in a Tower Garden? So we were introduced to this growing technology. We were kind of curious about it. And as I said, we had not had success in traditional soil gardening. So my husband was the champion. He said, let's get it. Let's get started. Since we were in a 4-story townhome, we did not have any grass or soil to grow food in. And this was our way of growing clean, nutrient-dense food for our family. So we got started. We loved it. We were amazed at how quickly we were growing food. And next thing you know, my husband wanted another Tower Garden just to grow tomatoes, which is so funny. Now we actually have a Tower Garden farm in North Carolina. And most of you are not going to do this. I understand it, but I want to share with you the vision that God gave us. We started with one tower, and then we added the second. And then we felt like God said, I want you to make an impact in a small community in North Carolina. We'd always wanted to live in the mountains. And my husband was looking for the next quote, quote, job or a career opportunity. And he just fell in love with the growing technology of Tower Garden. So we have a greenhouse farm about an hour and a half north of Charlotte. And we have 100 of these towers growing food for our local community, primarily 2 hospitals and 6 or so restaurants. And then we give back 10% of our food to people in need, which was really important to us. So that's a little bit about our story. Really, our dream has become a reality, and God gave us the dream. So I want to give him all the credit. But most of you are going to be growing on one Tower Garden at home. So let's focus about that. So what is the Tower Garden exactly? It's called a vertical aeroponic growing system. And so you understand the vertical. Let me talk about aeroponic for a moment. First of all, it is the modern or innovative approach to hydroponics. Most of us have heard of hydroponics. Hydroponics allows the plant or the root system to hang in water all day. So you've got this level of water and the plant is hanging in the water. And what Tim Blank, the creator of the Tower Garden, the chief horticulturist, discovered was he was at the Epcot land exhibit. He discovered that plants need more oxygen. So the Tower Garden allows for the plants to have the perfect combination of water, minerals, and oxygen. That's what's so innovative about this. And I can promise you that one day you will find Tower Gardens on Mars. NASA has these in their lobby. Microsoft has them in their lobby and in their cafeteria. So it's a very forward-thinking, growing technology. But for us at home, it's just super simple and super effective. So this is a great visual. I hope you can see this. And so the reservoir's at the bottom. It's got water and minerals mixed together. And you might be able to see the small pump That pump is pumping water to the top of the tower, and it's raining down on the root system, which are in the ports on the side. So the roots would be rained on throughout the day with a timer. If you are growing outdoors, you will require more water. If you're growing indoors, the timer will come on less often. But that's all automated for you. You're either setting your timer to indoors or outdoors. Super simple. But I love this visual of the inside of the tower garden, so you can see what aeroponic means. The roots are not hanging in water all day. They're being rained on during the day with water and minerals. So let's talk about where you could grow a tower garden. Actually, you can grow anywhere on earth, which is pretty amazing. You could live in a snowy climate like Colorado and have a tower garden inside, or you could grow outdoors, and this is a California-based farm. I think it's in the San Diego area. And you could grow beautiful food outdoors. But there's lots of combinations. Our farm is a greenhouse farm here in the North Carolina area, and you could have a small greenhouse in your backyard at home. But most people are growing in their kitchen or on their back deck or patio if they're getting at least 4 hours of sun every day. We'll talk more about that here in a minute. Why would you want to grow your own food? That's a great question. First of all, quality is important. And I'm sure you've seen some things like this in your grocery store recently. I certainly have. Living in a small town in North Carolina, I find that the groceries do not turn over enough in the produce section. So sometimes the variety and the quality is just very low. And across our country to get to me, it's actually losing a lot of its nutrition. And obviously, looking at this picture, it's not looking very edible either or appealing. So what I'd like to suggest is that you would have a tower garden very close to your kitchen so that you could very simply harvest directly into your tower or into your salad bowl. And you can see how beautiful those greens are compared to the ones on the previous screen. This family harvested their greens, put it directly into their salad bowl, and they're now eating nutrient-dense, clean produce from their tower every day. A common question I get is the tower garden actually proven to be effective? So I want to help you understand that the University of Mississippi, which is Ole Miss, has done a pretty incredible white paper. If you're a research nerd like me, we can get that to you and get with the person who invited you. But they did a side-by-side comparison of the tower garden versus growing in the soil. So they grew kale and spinach and several gourmet lettuces in the soil, and then they grew them in the tower garden. And what they discovered is the mineral content and the phytonutrient content, that means the nutritional content, was at least equal or better in many cases. So I love that I can grow food in a tower garden and that it's been proven to be effective by a pretty amazing horticultural school here in the States. The other reason that we want to grow our own food is the cost of food. Have you been to the grocery store lately and seen how expensive food is? I think they're saying that we've got about a 30% increase just in 2023. My husband and I were on vacation this weekend, and I sent him in the grocery store to get a couple of apples while I stayed in the car with the puppy. He came out, and he doesn't normally do the grocery shopping. He said, "Can you believe these 2 apples were over $4?" I was like, "Honey, yes, that's been the case for a while." But it is a rude awakening how expensive fresh produce is in the grocery store. So growing your own food at home is like printing your own money. I know that sounds a little bit, too good to be true, but it really is true. You can grow at home and save so much money, especially with the tower garden. So let's talk about value for a second. The tower garden actually pays for itself in the first 6 months. And this is an example over here on the left that a farmer created about growing food and purchasing it in the grocery store versus growing your own food at home. When we purchased our tower garden 13 years ago, we calculated that it paid for itself in 9 months. So basically, you're paying for your tower in either 6 or 9 months, and you have it for life. And the tower will just consistently grow food for you, which is amazing. So it's a really good value. The other thing I want to talk about is the safety of growing your own food on a tower garden. You will not put any herbicides or pesticides on your food in the tower garden, and that makes me as a health coach so happy, because the toxins that we get from our food can really affect our long-term health. The other thing I want to talk about is the environment. And the tower garden is great for the environment and sustainability. And sustainability is all about not compromising what future generations can do to get their food, whether it be through the environment or the soil. So let's talk about reducing the carbon footprint on this earth and how the tower garden can impact that. So agricultural imports have increased 145% in the last decade. So most of our food, or many of our food items, are coming from other countries. And that's a huge footprint on our environment. The other thing we want to talk about is the lack of water in this country and across the world. This is Tim Blank, the creator of the Tower Garden, and he's showing one of those huge reservoirs in the Nevada area and how much it has decreased due to global warming. And the Tower Garden uses less than 10% of the water used in traditional gardening. So no more of this spraying tons of water and wasting tons of water. You will use and recycle the water that goes into the tower garden and not be wasting. So it's 98% less water. Can you believe that? It's incredible, especially in the areas where we are drought ridden and across the world. So many of us go to the store and buy our lettuce in a plastic box, and that ends up becoming a part of a landfill. So we're going to reduce, environmental issues by eliminating packaging from boxes, bags, all the above. We're going to eliminate trucking as much, because we're basically growing our own food at home and going directly into our salad bowl. And the other thing that I want to talk about is the food revolution. The revolution of people wanting to grow food at home and to eat food that's clean, nutrient dense, and locally grown. So this is a restaurant. We're demanding that in our restaurants. And this is a homeowner, and she's growing her own cute little strawberries there on a tower garden. So let's talk about the schools and how we can impact schools. We are finding more and more schools placing tower gardens close by the children so that they can use them in their curriculum. And they can also start changing those little taste buds so that they like greens and salad from a very young age. So this is a great thing for a homeschool mom or an actual school. And I am seeing as early as pre-K all the way up to college students and teachers and educators use this incredible system. It also comes with some amazing lesson plans for the educator. So one day I truly believe that everyone will have a tower garden, just like they'll have a fridge in their home. And I believe this is in the next 10 years. So people are demanding good quality food, and they will find a way to get a tower garden into their home. So let's talk about a few options. We have two options when you're looking at a tower garden. The first one is the indoor unit. This one is called the home unit. It comes with LED lights, and it's got a little smaller footprint, so it's easy to move within your home. And the question to ask yourself is, am I going to be growing indoors more often than outdoors? You could move this one outdoors if you had some beautiful days or a few months out of the year that made sense. But the majority of the time, if you're using a home system, you're going to be growing indoors. I mentioned earlier that you can grow anything in a tower garden that is not a root vegetable or a tree, but the sweet spot for the tower garden is leafy greens and herbs. So you can see in this photo that most of the things this homeowner is growing are leafy greens and herbs. And that's what we grow in our home so that we will eat more leafy greens and herbs. The other option is called the Flex system. This is designed for outdoor growing. These are my 2 units when I lived in Atlanta. We had one for tomatoes, that's on the right, and we had one for leafy greens. So this has a little bit bigger footprint, and it traditionally doesn't come with lights. However, in our case, we moved it into our 4th floor, which had no windows, for 2-3 months out of the year in Atlanta, and added the LED lights. So it is a flexible system. But again, the question to ask yourself is, am I going to grow outdoors more often than indoors? Then I would go with the Flex. If I'm going to grow indoors more often, I would go with the Home. So for years, we thought our only option for growing food would be in the soil. But now we're seeing that you can grow on your back deck or patio beautiful food, or in your kitchen. And what I'm suggesting is that you complement any type of gardening you're doing outside with this growing system. And I find that my master gardeners love having 2 options. So the rabbits eat all their lettuce, for example. So maybe they grow their lettuce on their tower garden, and they grow their potatoes and carrots and garlic out in the soil. So you can do a variety of things, and if you have a heart for growing food, you'll figure it out. Let's talk about food sovereignty. This might be a new term for many of you, but it basically means the ability of communities to determine the quantity and quality of the food they consume. And they do this by controlling how their food is produced and distributed. So I am finding more and more people concerned about food sovereignty. I also see more people concerned about food security, and that's a little bit different. This means that you have access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food in your community. And many of us don't have access to that. So therefore, the reason for the growth of tower gardens, we are seeing so many people. This is actually a friend of mine in an island community of Tahiti growing their own food. And in the past, they had to have all their food shipped over. Now they can grow their own on their island, which is pretty incredible because they have great weather for it. So before I open the lineup for questions, I want to share a couple of closing thoughts with you. Again, we have 2 systems, one that's for the home use, indoor use primarily, one that's for outdoor use. And you could grow anything you want to grow in a tower garden. I've seen people grow strawberries all the way to watermelons. However, the sweet spot is leafy greens and herbs. So that's what we choose to grow. And then we play around sometimes and add in some peppers and add in some, cherry tomatoes. The other question that I get quite often is, how much maintenance is required to maintain my tower garden? And I want to answer that. We will teach you, we have some great tools and support systems, but we will teach you how to love your tower every day. It's a 5-minute process. You go by your tower, you take a look at it, be sure that it's clean, there's no sign of any pests. If there are pests, we can teach you some natural ways to take care of those little pests, but you would not put anything synthetic on your tower garden. So about 5 minutes a day will give you the tools. And finally, we have great support tools. So that would be a Facebook group for first-time growers, just like you, where you can ask questions, you can share your successes, share your beautiful tomatoes. We also have a YouTube channel that has a video for almost any question you have. So I'm about to harvest my lettuce. There's a 2-minute video on how to harvest your lettuce. I need to clean my tower. How do I do that? There's a video on that. So we've created all this great support for you as a homeowner so that you can quickly be empowered to make decisions about your tower. Obviously, the person who helped you get started will also be your support system. So with that said, I'm going to turn off the recording, and I'd love to answer your questions about the tower garden. Let me see here.